All right. Hi, Wendy. So I am so happy to have you here and talking about the UC Center Sacramento program. And what that program is, it's an academic internship program that is basically tying in an internship that will usually be associated with the state. And you're tying it in with academic credits. So you're applying that information to your classes, you're learning in your classes, and then you're applying that out into the field. And so it's a good way to get, different experiences outside of UCR. So I'm going to have Wendy introduce herself with her major and how she became interested in the UCCS program and yeah, all of that fun stuff.
Hi everyone, my name is Wendy Rincon. I am a third-year bioengineer student, so I'm not a political science, public policy. I'm nothing related to UCCS. I just happened to get into this program through a career fair that I went one day, and it really happened out of the blue. I remember I went to the event because I had extra time between my classes, and I attended the event, and I saw the director or the advisor for UCCS, and my first thoughts were, I'm not going to talk to her. She seems super cool. She seems like she has this really great program that I just can't get into. And I don't want to get myself depressed right now because I have to go to class. So I just didn't talk to her. And I did like 3 circles around the career fair. And I remember it was towards the end and she was packing up and she was going to go. Kat, who's the advisor, she was already going to leave. And I remember I stopped her. I don't know why I stopped her, but I stopped her and I was like, hi, I just had a question. I'm kind of interested, but I don't even think you're going to want me. And she was like, no, don't be silly, just apply. But the application is due in a week, so you got this. And I remember I was like, oh, totally got this, just got 17 credits of units, got to finish this application in less than a week. I got this. But I somehow did it, and now I'm in the program this quarter. And I would really say it's worth getting into, because at first you might think it's not going to be worth it because it's all virtually, but it really is worth applying. It's worth applying. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about virtual. This is the first quarter that we have had this virtual experience for UCCS because of these COVID-19 circumstances. And so, it's good to hear from you and your experience of how this is going, just because we don't know how long this is going to last. And so I'm sure students want to hear from how this virtual environment would contribute to your personal development, your professional development, what an internship even looks like. I think that's a big question that a lot of students have is how are they able to intern well in this new environment. So we're going to be talking about all of that today, all of that fun stuff. Before we get into that though, you're also a Health Scholar Award recipient. So let's talk about what that means and, that eligibility, the application process, how you heard about it. So yeah.
So for the Health Justice Scholars Award, I think it was also similar to the application was. Like, I remember entering it, I was like, I don't think I'll get in. There's other people in the program who's probably going to get into. But one of the requirements for the award is that you have to be a UCCS student. So you have to get accepted into the program, then you apply. Afterwards, you have to do an essay, and they get back to you almost around the first few weeks before or in the quarter, depending on how the timing is. But they'll get back to you and they'll let you know if you did or didn't get in. And I remember when I got in, it was really mind-blowing because I was not expecting it. It came out of nowhere. And I thought I was misreading it, so I had to like reread it a few times to make sure everything was right. But yeah, then it's not one of those applications though that when you get it, you think it's like, it's done. But no, like I remember I got it and then I had to stay committed with the Health Justice Scholars. And I think the first things I had to do were 2 different essays. One was for what I was doing in my internship, and the other one was more like what I was doing in class, or vice versa. It can be either way. And then a few other things I had to turn in were a few pictures of what I was doing at home, what I was working on. And then one of the major requirements is that your whole poster presentation and your whole paper project, which is the big project that you work on from the beginning of the quarter till the very end of the quarter in your classes of CCST. And excuse me, for UCCS, CCST is actually my internship, but we'll get to that later. But UCCS, it's like a big project that you work on throughout the quarter. And I remember my big project had to be based on a health justice issue, which is why the word Health Justice Scholars. And then at the very end, I think you do like a summary of how you felt the program was and how you felt being a health justice scholar impacted you. And then that's the end of it.
Very cool. And was there a certain organization that you said brought this to your attention?
Yeah, so it actually happened the same moment I met Kat. I remember she talked to me a little bit about it. She said, I know you're also a pre-med slash pre-law slash a little bit of everywhere because I am super lost, or I was lost before I entered the program, which is another reason why I motivate or try to push students to really try to apply for this program, because you might feel like it's not for you, but it really does help you figure out what you want to do in life. And I know for me, I was really lost, and she told me just apply to the health justice scholars, maybe because you obviously know stuff about medicine, and maybe that'll help you shape out if you want to do medical policy stuff.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to transition to the internship, which you kind of already talked about a little bit. So what was your internship site, and how, how was working assigned? How was that whole experience for you?
So I think for my internship site, it all started off with, well, you first have to get interviewed for different types of internships. So what happens is, I remember you either get 1 or 2 internship placements, and you have to interview for both of them, or you have to interview for either one of them, how many you get, and you have to get in on your own. What UCCS does, they only give you the information, and getting into the internship is on your own. Once you're in, you tell UCCS that you got into an internship. I got into CCST, which stands for California Council on Science and Technology. Big name right there, but California Council on Science and Technology. And what I do for them, I basically work on a variety of projects. I work on a wildfire project, on a COVID-19 project, and then I also work on more of an expanded series project called Did You Know, in which we try to inform the public of all the stuff that CCST is working on.
Very cool. Okay. And how was your dynamic being virtual with your supervisor and projects? What was that experience like?
So the virtual experience was something that it did happen all of a sudden for us. I remember I had packed everything up and my car was ready to go. And then they did tell us last minute that they had to change it all virtually. So it happened almost overnight, the virtual dynamic. And I at first was kind of bummed out because I really wanted to visit San Francisco or NorCal and everything. But I thought it was like a better opportunity, because it'll help you increase your virtual skills, because that's something not a lot of us have the opportunity to do, because we're always on a day by day talking to people in person. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I should take a step back and see this kind of virtual dynamic in a positive view, which is kind of like improving my virtual skills, because I'm sure everyone can like talk to everyone in person, but can we really talk to them on the phone in a professional manner? Is kind of what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so when you were tasked with, projects, maybe, for example, you worked with wildfire research, what did that look like? The kind of the assignments that you were able to do, and how did you keep in contact with your supervisor? Was there a primary way to contact her?
So for my wildfires project, it all started. So I got the task from my supervisor, who then I worked on with a colleague of ours from CCST. And my task was mainly to find different papers that explain the cause and the effects of wildfires, in which she would later then write out the paper and then cite the information that I was giving her, so that we can show or prove to the world that these aren't just statements that we're saying, they're statements and facts that were tested and proven by actual scientific researchers.
Awesome. All right. And because we have this virtual challenge now, would you say it was, or how was it, managing that communication with your supervisor? Was it easy? Was it challenging? What made it easier? What made it challenging?
I think for us, or for me specifically, it really did help me to know that they wanted to stay in contact with me, or to know that they always wanted to listen to me or keep in contact with me, or just hear a message from me. And I know for us, we use Slack a lot, which helps us all stay more in contact with each other, because I know we could be working on a project and then Slack will like immediately send us a message saying that someone's text messaging us or someone's wanting to do a voice call with us. So that helped us a lot. But I know for my other colleagues in different internships, I know we all talked about it, and I think for us it was mainly like we had to push ourselves to talk with them, because no matter what, it's mostly on our job now. It's not on them, because they have 100 things to do, and for us, we can't be another concern in their mind. Like, we need to be able to message them and be like, here, hey, you might have a lot of things in your plate, but just remember I am here for you, or I am available to do some part of your job. So it was really on us to push ourselves to message them first and not expect them to message us.
That's a great point, definitely. And I would say that's a huge difference with that in-person, internship experience, where maybe you would be doing something like, I don't know, making calls or answering calls or making copies or something like that. But, you're asking for real work to do to contribute to, wildfire research and how to transition that into a conversation politically. So that's really great that you're able to get that experience. So now transitioning to the academic portion, because I know the UCCS, they do require 15 units at least to be enrolled in. And so, virtually that might be a different picture than what we were kind of imagining, right? Usually in this program, you have your seminar class, and then you have, different professional development opportunities like the speaker series as well. And then you have your research course. And so what did all of that look like in that virtual setting?
So I think at a virtual setting, my first few weeks, it was kind of a little bit overwhelming because it's a lot of things that are happening virtually. Like, I think every single day I had to check up 3 different calendars because I had 3 different emails. I had an email for CCST internship, CCS UC Davis, and then I had in my other UCR email, because I always have to be checking on that, because I never know if someone from Riverside is communicating with me. So I all had to push that all in one calendar. So my calendar was always appearing with different virtual Zoom calls, but it was something that I had to take step by step. Like, I had to organize my speaker series every Wednesdays from 12 to 1. And then classes are always on Fridays, which is very, very nice, because I don't have to worry about class between Monday through Thursday. But then Monday and Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have my internship course, in which I am basically working from 9 to 5. And then I normally, like, after 5 p.m., I'm always like exhausted, because I'm literally working from 9 to 5 p.m. back to back, because I'll be either getting a Slack from someone, which is a message, or a voice call from somebody from the office, or I'll have to be sitting in a meeting, which can last up to 1 to 3 hours long. And so then there's that. And then I think on Wednesdays, when I have my speaker series, that's mainly the day I try to catch up on homework, and then include some extra, like, CCST work that I'm a little bit behind on. And then that's how I go on with my week. So it's a lot of things, but it really is consisting of organizing my different Zoom calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you had your seminar class for UCCS, or that Friday class,
Mm-hmm.
what did that environment look like? I mean, was it discussion based? Like, how were you able to connect with the class or with the professor even?
I think for that, it was kind of at first, everyone was really not trying to communicate. And I think the professor made it mandatory that we all had to have our cameras on during Zoom. So it was kind of interesting seeing everybody up, because I think our classes would start like at 9 a.m. and some students would not sleep Thursdays night. So then it was funny to see some of the people's reactions, waking up to an early class. But because it forced us to have our cameras on, it pushed us to stay more open in the discussions and more involved in the discussions. So at first it was kind of slow, but then we all started, like, getting more open and started opening up our opinions about political science programs or projects.
That's awesome. Cool. And because I know you had kind of a lot on your plate, how did you manage all of that with your schoolwork and your internship? Did you feel like in this virtual setting you were able to manage that, or kind of how was that whole transition for you?
I think if I think about it now, I don't think I would have been able to do it, because it was a lot of things to be asked. I know it would have been at times easier to do in person, but I think it was convenient at times to have it virtually, just because rather than wasting 5 minutes on walking from point A to point B, I was able to accumulate all those 5 minutes to become almost an hour, in which that hour I had time to network with other people from across the country, actually, because I know I would contact people from Texas all the way to people to Washington, D.C., and it was one of those things that I couldn't really have in an in-person environment, because all that networking actually happened from all my downtime that I had.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. The transition is hard on a lot of people, a lot of students, and figuring out, how can they manage because they're always at home, whether they're working from home, or they're, studying and in class. And so the transition, is definitely relatable to a lot of students that are going through this right now. So yeah, and then in this kind of program, you're able to network on top of that, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about the research portion, because I know that's a requirement of the program. And so now that they transition that into the online environment, what does that look like for you in preparing for that? You kind of talked about that you needed to have a research topic that was related to health justice because of your scholarship. And so, maybe you could talk about that too.
Mm-hmm. So I think for my internship, or for my project, my main research project, for that, I started off going slow with everything. Like, I wanted to make sure, like, I knew what I wanted to do, because I know at the beginning I was a little bit confused with what I wanted to do research on, because this was a different field of mine. Like I said, I'm not a political science, I'm not a public policy person, I'm a science person. So my research was always based on facts, on things that were actually proven, because, well, we found them in the laboratory. But this is more like on writing a question and having a person interpret that question, which sometimes people can interpret questions differently. So when I did my research, I decided to focus it on health justice for my Health Justice Scholars Award. And I focused that specifically on how physicians in today's time are treating patients. And I understand that although physicians right now and many medical staff or individuals are being praised for everything they're doing, and I appreciate what they're doing for COVID-19 and how they're battling it, but my question was really, how are they treating our patients? Like, are they doing the work with kindness, or are they doing it with anger and frustration? And that's not something we really want to ask. That's something we kind of just want to look away, but it's also something we need to force ourselves to look onto and accept the fact that, is it something that's happening? And if it is, how can we change it? So I think I began my research by creating a set of survey questions and then sending those out to the field, in which I asked a set of, I think, almost 200 individuals, because there was 193 people who answered my survey, and I managed to understand what they saw. Like, right now, I'm currently in the process of analyzing my data, and so far the results have been a little bit interesting, because I've noticed that a lot of people who answered the survey questions interpret the survey questions differently than how I was picturing it. So that's something I would definitely have to include. But that was something I found in my research, like something different from my regular research experiences that I'm used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with these online surveys, right? They were online
Yeah.
surveys. Yeah, and so that part seems a little bit similar to, some quantitative analysis or quantitative data that you'd be collecting for this research topic, even if you were in person and analyzing all of that. So that's kind of a similar experience. And would you say? I
Yeah.
mean, but now in talking about the research showcase, can you talk about kind of what that is and maybe their transition from in-person to virtual?
Mm-hmm. So I think for my in-person experience, or for the virtual experience of the showcase, I am gonna have to go for that a little bit different than I would in an in-person, because I know for my virtual experience, it's gonna be based more on like on a set of like 100 people who are going to be watching, because it's going to be through Zoom, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who will be invited to watch us. So I think compared to the in-person, which is normally like 5 people who view my presentation at a time, this will be more like a set of maybe 50 to 100 people who will be watching me, and it will only be between 2 to 3 minutes long, and this will be live. So obviously there's not a lot of space for mistakes or anything, so I have to make sure I present it right, correctly, and it sounds not not being disrespectful to anyone, because I know what I'm working on is a very delicate topic, but I want to make sure I try to get the truth out of our society.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of when you were talking about what the research, showcase would look like, originally you would have about 5 people or so in the room, but and then you would still be live, right? Essentially. But now you'll be live, but you'll be virtual and there could be more viewers. And so, you're still rehearsing, you're still going to be asked questions, but the setting will be different. I guess you'll have the capability of watching yourself, since Zoom has that, where you're kind of looking in the mirror while you're talking, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so, there are some similarities there and some differences. So there's that. And then the last thing we'll talk about is the personal and professional development, which you kind of talked about. And in talking about the challenges, I mean, I'm sure you've already managed these challenges, but now how are you able to, grow into kind of a development, or like develop these challenges into strengths from this program?
So I think one of my main challenges is really the whole virtual aspect, because I know for me, I'm a really good in-person people. Like I can easily communicate with people in person, and that has never been a really big struggle for me. But changing to the virtual dynamic, it was something where I had to really push myself to go out there and talk to people, because it's not the same like to talking with someone in person. It's completely different, because you would have to email them and set up a Zoom time, and it has to be a time that works both for you guys, and then it might sometimes be miscommunication in the emails that you just don't understand what either one of you guys are saying. So then that's the tricky part for me. And I know that throughout this whole course, this whole virtual online system, I managed to really learn how to properly communicate with someone through email and try to get them to contact me, or how I can contact them through Zoom.
Yeah, that communication has completely changed, virtual versus in person. So that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
huge deal. And how was the networking piece for you? And you kind of talked about it with communicating with people all over the country. And so what was that like for you?
I think, oh man, I'm only starting with I think, but for me the networking was something at the beginning I didn't have access to, and that was something that I really wanted from UCST. It was something from, did I say CCST or UCCS?
I think you combine those two, yeah.
Okay.
UCCS?
Yeah, with UCCS. Sorry, there's so many initials nowadays that I'm like so lost. But with UCCS, I think that was something I really wanted from the program. So I remember I reached out with both the advisors of UCCS, and then I reached out with CCST. And I reached out with as many people as I knew from the program, and I told them, hey, I'm so and so, I'm from UCCS, and I just wanted to stay in contact or meet somebody from a different field. And I think from UCCS and CCST, I think in a matter of like minutes, it wasn't even hours that it took them. I think in a matter of minutes, they both were like, yes, we want to help you get in contact with people. And I think in less than an hour, I think I already had like a 5 Zoom meetings with different people, and they were, like I said, one was across the United States, the other one was in Texas, and that was actually a struggle though at first, because I thought it was exciting, but then later I found out about the time difference. So 3 p.m. for me was actually 6 p.m. for somebody else. So we all had to I had to organize my accommodations, how I write the emails. Like, I'll meet you at 3 p.m., which is 6 p.m. your time.
Yeah, that's a huge learning curve too, is,
Mhm.
when you're communicating with people from other states or other time zones, or breaking that assumption is what I should say, and assuming that, they might not be on the same time that you're talking about. And so, coordinating that, that is another skill that you would build, especially in networking, and you're able to do that across the country, which is definitely a pro of, this program and other internship programs where you're able to network. You have more accessibility to others versus if you were in person, then you would probably just stick with people in Sacramento, which is great, you know, but also you would have access to others, you know, in different parts of the country, which is awesome. Well, those are all of my questions, but do you have any kind of last thoughts or last words that you'd like to share before we stop our time?
Um, um, I think one thing I would really push people is that if they're going to do the UCCS, and I would really recommend them to do it, is really push yourself to go out there. Like, don't be afraid, especially right now in a virtual setting, like to ask for help or to contact people or just to send messages to someone, because that's the whole point right now of being in a virtual setting. It's like my supervisor said, it's never bad to send somebody many messages. It's bad if you never talk to them or never send them a message, because they don't know if you're there, if you're okay, or if you're even there to work, because that's your main part at UCCS. You're here to work and you're here to get an experience out of this. And if you want to network with people at UCCS, then you need to tell them, and you need to put your opinions out there and not be afraid of it. And that's something I would push people to do. And like me, I was afraid of doing it, but I pushed myself to do it and I did it. And if people feel afraid to do it, I would say just do it, you know, like just do it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Wendy,
No problem.
for talking through your experience. I know we're all kind of in this season of uncertainty right now, and having this virtual option to accommodate, you know, your internship experience is important, you know, to hear from you and see how it's even going for you. So thank you so much.
No problem.